So I want to start off by saying hello and welcome. So tonight is a little bit different for me. A lot of times I can get up here and, you know, I don't know exactly what to say, but I know there are times that spirit just moves and I'm able to just speak what's on my heart, what's on my mind, and see where it goes. And so tonight is no different. What I've been getting a lot lately is express, and tell your story. And so, first off, the reason why I think it's so important for people to tell their story is because a lot of us are going through things and a lot of us have gotten through things. And some people really don't even know how to get through what they're going through on their own, right? And they're looking for a way. And they're looking for some understanding, they're looking for some clarity and you know so being as though I'm one of those people, I felt like, it's important for you to do your part as an individual. And we may not always know what our part is, and we may not be able to understand how to do it or what to do or when to start. But just getting past that moment and getting past that thought process of, the who, what, when, where, and how, and just doing it. And so I was at that point. I was at the point where I have been through quite a bit with multiple people in my life, in multiple situations, at multiple different stages. And I didn't know how to uh, communicate it or articulate it in a way where it would be receivable, but also where it wouldn't add more trauma to someone else who was hearing it or you know trigger someone without some sort of resolve with it. And I think that's very important. I think it's really important that we not only tell our story, but it's helpful to give the portion of it where you got out of it and what you did to help yourself, or what uh, God or the universe or, whatever you relate to, because we're all having our own experiences. And I don't want to deny anyone's reality and what they're experiencing. And so it's important to give the resolve so that that person has an opportunity to, you are being used to be an opportunity to see them through. And they may not know you, you guys may have never met, but it's an opportunity for you to help someone go through the steps and help them feel like you're there with them, which is what I think people telling their stories and their testimonies and their journey is really about. And so for me, I was at that point. I was at the point of, wanting to tell how these situations had changed me, how they had helped me grow, how they helped me see myself in such a way that I had never seen before. And with telling the story, I don't want it to be about the other person, right? Because really the story is not about the other person. It's not about the other person at all. It's really more so about me and how you, the listener, can see yourself in the position of the me. That would be you in that case. But understanding why I have come up against so many different things that have happened, but they hold similar energy signatures, right? They hold similar lessons that needed to be taught. And some of them were really big lessons, just broken down, and people who were in my life were used as those lessons. As hard as it may be, and as much as you as a person want to look at the other person and say you did this and you did that and you were like this, absolutely. That person may be all those things. But for me, what I realized on this side of my healing journey now is that it really wasn't about those people at all, right? And I mean, it being about those people, it wasn't about what the people did to me. It was about the lessons that they had helped me to learn. And it was about me recognizing that I wasn't battling flesh and blood. So they were the flesh and blood showing up, but being used, right? Because if you allow attachments in because your heart has been tainted or some form of bitterness have set in, right? If you allow that, then you can be used too. And because I understand that portion of it, which is why I don't hold those things in my heart, because I understand if you hold those things in your heart, then you too can be used for those types of things, because you're actually giving it space for it to fester, for it to grow, for it to be used within you. And so I don't hold anything towards those people who did those things, because I understand that they know not what they do, right? I understand that they too are on a journey of healing. And sometimes being on this journey, I can see how it can be missed, that you miss your whole blessing and your lesson because you're so busy looking at the person that you can't see the lesson, right? You can't reflect on what it is that you're learning because it's so much of the person that you're paying attention to. And really, the person that really needs the attention is you. You need the attention. You need the time. You need to talk about you. You need to ask yourself why. You need to ask yourself those questions that you may be asking of that person in your mind, or even when you have an argument or when you talk to them, because really it's about you. It's really about your journey. It's really about your lessons. But those people are being used. They're being used because um, what you would call the devil or negative energy knows that they can use them because they're close to you. It knows that it can use them because that's the way it's going to help you learn the lesson. And if you can't get past the idea that this person is not the person who's doing it, yes, they're being used as a vessel, but it's also the same as a person being used as God's vessel. So when you come into contact with someone who's being positive, the same way God sent the message, or your higher source sent the message with whatever you resonate with, they were able to get that message to you because uh, they were open to God's voice. They were open to, Adonai's voice and presence. So that person could hear to be able to translate that message to you in passing. It's the same way with negative energy or the devil. If that person has some form of negative, um, bitterness or unforgiveness in their hearts, that same negative energy is able to come to you and be able to communicate with you or do what it does to you because they have an attachment and they're being used. This is also a lesson for that person too, if they're willing to see it. But this is also a lesson for you as an individual, is how I took it. So for me, I understood that all these things I had went through was building me up for something. I didn't understand this in the beginning, right? It took me a while for me to go through certain things and for me to come into contact with certain situations, for me to finally sit down and say, hey, why is this happening? What's going on and what can you do to change it? Like, what part of this can you control so that you can change the things that are affecting you? When I asked those questions, it made me look at me and stop looking at all the people outside of me. It definitely started, um, for one, when I got married, because I was a part of a blended family. So I have in laws and I have, my stepson's mother and all the things that come with that. I'll, you know, give that story at a later date. But for me, when I realized that I was needing some form of self development, which was really hard for me to look at myself and say, okay, you don't know everything that you think you know, or you don't realize that there are some things that you need to learn. You need to be open and you need to be flexible and flow with the fact that you don't know it all. Um, And so when I started to have things show up to me in marriage, which was the biggest thing, where I'm so busy trying to point fingers and fight with him about what I think is wrong and what I think he's doing wrong and what I think he should be doing and what I think he's doing to me, it was all what I thought about him or what I thought I was seeing. When really when it all boiled down to it, and I stopped just being that way, right? I realized, like, it's you, right? It's you, because for one, I felt like it was me because I don't have to look at it in the way that I'm looking at it. Two, there's no reason why I could possibly think that it's only that person, right? It takes two to play this game. We're both in this together. So clearly, you got to look at you at some point and be like, oh, I'm messing up too. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be honest about that. Like, I think people don't want to be honest with themselves. They want people to be honest with them, but they're not honest with themselves, which is why people are usually not honest with you. I also learned some of that too. And also some of this stuff is coming into contact with us because we need to be able to spot some things to grow our discernment and to gain our wisdom from these experiences. And that is what I really learned the most. And with that, I took this class called Spiritual Autobiography, right? And I had already been doing some work before this because I've already created a shadow workbook journal. So I've done some of that. And I've also been writing in journals and journal prompting. So I was already on my journey of just trying to understand what I was going through, period. That was already I was already on those steps. But I was at the point where I wasn't just journaling about it, and I wasn't just like um giving this information out to other people so that they can then use it. At some point it was like I was able to now see it from a different perspective, and I wanted to share. But like I was saying in the beginning, I didn't want to be sharing and just trauma dumping online and just all the bad stuff. Yeah, this happened to me, that happened to me, this happened to me. Yes, it's true, it all did happen to me. But how can I offer this up to other people where it's helpful to them, where they're going to be able to receive it, where they're going to be able to work their way through it and navigate through it. And when I did the spiritual autobiography, what I realized in this meeting with hearing some of the stories and listening to some of the ladies that was in here is that there is a bridge to be um, there is a gap, right? And it needs some bridging between God and people, or between source and the creator and people, right? We have this middleman, what you would call religion, right? And then you have people who say they practice spirituality, right? And so it's all talking about the same thing. It's all talking about the same thing. And I think that we're just missing that because we're so busy looking at, like I was saying, you're looking at the person and not looking at that you're not battling against flesh and blood. So let me say this, when I look at this spiritual autobiography and the shadow work that I have been doing, it was doing the same thing, right? But from the spiritual autobiography stance, it is when you go through your ages and your stages from either one to, I think it said from 3 to 11, and then from like 11 to 20 years old, it goes by stages in your life. It's asking you to think back on the people who were closest to you in your life, or, you know, something that's significant happened, but within looking at that, ask yourself why, right? And where can you see God in the presence of it and what God was doing, right? That's from the spiritual autobiography. That's more of a, if you would say, a traditional type of religion aspect of it when speaking about how what God was doing in your life, right? And then I have a shadow workbook that I also created myself because I needed to understand some things about myself. And in the shadow workbook, it gives you the psyche of exactly things that are happening, different archetypes that you're not paying attention to, that you don't understand, you don't have the words for it, and these types of things. Also, it has you tap into um, some experiences that you have been through. It asks you to tap into some feelings that you have had in your upbringing and what your upbringing, how it plays a part in your life. And what I realized about looking at it from a spiritual standpoint, right? Because we have spirituality, we have the spiritual community. and then we have the religious community. And they're both talking about the same thing, but from a religious aspect, right? The spiritual community is what they would say replacing God, because you'll hear spiritual people say, I am God or I embody God, and it's nothing outside of me. So religious people, I've heard religious people tell me, oh, that's demonic. And you got to be careful about the spirits that you take on or that spiritual stuff. They try to replace God. And then I've been around and I've heard spirituality, which they're not necessarily judging religion, but they are um, removing themselves from that aspect of what religion stands for. And so that seeing it as, oh, well, I don't do religion because, religion is bad, it keeps you stuck and all of these things, and I am God, I don't have no white God outside of me telling me, or I don't have to follow no God and things like that. So they both have their biasness in their perspective of what they operate in, right? What I've seen and what I understand from my perspective is that the bridge that needs to be had is to understand that it is all talking about the same thing, right? When you take the scriptures and you break them down, right, and you add them to like what you would call the 12 universal laws, it's pretty much all giving us the same type of understanding, right? And when we step outside of all the things that everyone told us we need to be, how we need to talk, what we need to talk about, how we need to perceive it, right? It's so much of us getting inside of these different societies or these different circles or these different ideologies that have been given to us, period. They have all been given to us. And so you have to be discerning about which ones are for you and which ones resonate with you, which is why we have different religions, different ways of seeing it, different cultures understand it in different ways. That's why we have that, because everybody's having their own perspectives on the reality that they're living with, whatever they resonate with. Now, what I will say is that when I was in the Christian community, there was a lot of judgment towards people who do not believe the same, or who are not considered Christians and how they operate. Some um, people in the spiritual community, they do not relate to the Bible or the teachings of Jesus in any way, because they feel like it is an oppressed way that has been given to them for them to have a diluted version of practicing their sovereignty and their spirituality. When all of it, when all of it all together is all talking about um, all of us as a collective. As a whole, we are all vessels of creation, right? No one better than the other. No one sin bigger. No one sin lesser. No one's a super saint. No one's not a saint. Everyone just is, right? We just are. And that's it. All of these other things that have been created in words from a bastardized language that is foreign to us anyway. We had to learn this language. This wasn't just a language that we had already been just given, that we already picked up on, and as we gotten older, we just understood how to understand the people around us, understand the energy around us, or hear outside of just our physical ears. None of that has happened. It's all been us having to be taught something outside of ourselves so that we can coexist in a space with other beings that are like us. So none of us are really operating in our original stance, which would be what you would call God or creative energy or creative potential or the am that I am, because all of us are those things. All of us embody that. And because our experiences and our backgrounds and our unconscious behaviors are also dictating to us how we perceive what it is that we are looking at, hearing, or experiencing, you're going to have your own take on what it is that you're seeing. And we're supposed to. We're all here to do something different. So with us doing something different, we're not going to all have the same experience, and we're not going to gain the same experiences from what we go through. It's not meant for us to do that, because it is us experiencing the I am energy, potential, God creator. It is us having an experience through this vessel, right? There are multitude things that can be experienced and be created from this potential energy. And if we can understand that is what we're supposed to be doing, it'll be a lot less of us arguing and fighting and bickering and having conversations about this stuff, and actually just existing and utilizing that energy to be better, utilizing that time and space to just create something better, right? Because that's what it is. Where there are one or two gathered, there I am in the midst. Me and it being in the midst is the I am is there for the potential energy for while we are here together to exchange in some way and create something else. Now be attached to that something else, because it doesn't necessarily belong to you. You just harnessed in on that energy that was there in the potential space. You utilize it, you put it to work for what you needed to do, and then it moves on and it goes and it does what it needs to do. Now if you continue to work in that energy, it will continue to grow and others will actually add their energy. If it doesn't continue to grow, then that means it just was no longer time for that thing and it will dissipate, because that's how energy is. It's constantly moving, it's constantly changing. We are that essence, we live in that essence. So, me understanding that the bridging of the gap is the mindset that none of this, all of the titles are separating us. It is not allowing us to move past it. And because we can be controlled because we perish for the lack of knowledge, right? It's being utilized to create other things. Meanwhile, someone else is using all of that intensity, all of that passion, all of that bickering energy, all of that heavy energy to create the world they want to see. It is being harvested because you don't understand how to tap into that. And then when I understood that, I understood, these things are coming into my existence because I need to gain the knowledge and understanding of how these things work, right? Before, I was really triggered. I was really triggered, and I would be like jumping into it and just mad, just pissed off to the highest extent. And then once I was done being pissed off, then it was like um I was drained. I was pissed off, then I was drained, and then it was like it was over. And then it would happen again. Pissed off, drained, then it was over. Then it would happen again. And I'm like, why does this keep happening? Once I asked myself that question, the revelation was so clear about what was happening. So I wasn't learning the lesson. That's one, that they'll tell you that in the Bible too. And I wasn't paying attention to the pattern. And then also, I wasn't understanding how this was of benefit to me, because everything that happens to you is going to be of benefit to you. Uh, We hear the saying all the time: I'll never give you more than you can carry." You know, you're you're built for this, right? What you experience, you're built for it. It is meant for you. Otherwise, it would not be for you. You would not come into contact with it. Whether it is just for you to learn, just for you to grow, just for you to change, or even to humble you, right? All of that is for you, even if we don't want to admit that. It's for you. So, what I understood about that, once I understood that, it was like a floodgate of information had like flooded in. And I understood, oh, this situation was for me to grow, for me to see my self worth, for me to see, you know, why I shouldn't be allowing this, right? And this is the part that I think that so many of us are just so used to. I know for me, I grew up in a household where I wasn't taught self love. I wasn't taught how to stand up for myself, unless it was like, oh, you fighting in the streets. But that only required people who were outside of your own family. Meanwhile, I was being bullied by some of the people in my own family, my mom being one of them. Like, she didn't allow us to exist in her space without her having to dictate how things work. And if it was not her dictating it, she allowed someone else to be in our space and dictate to us and lock our energy down. So when you do that, right, as a kid, even if you feel like, oh, you know, I was a kid and they did that to me when I was a kid, subconsciously, that's the behavior you take on, right? And it's either going to turn out that you become highly aggressive and you be like, nah, nobody going to do that to me ever again, or you don't let that happen and you just be very timid and passive, very passive, and in some ways passive aggressive, and then in other ways people pleasing because that's just what you're used to doing, right? And so I understood that that's what was happening to me when I got with my husband and things started happening. And I came into contact. Now I've been to church on and off majority of my life, but I had never had any interactions with the back end side of religious people, right? I've always just been like, oh, I'm just attending, I'm just a member. I never had to like have dealings with them. So in my mind, I'm like, these people are holy, saved, and sanctified. That's why they were able to have a church. That's why they were able to build a church. But when I got older, and this is when I got married, that I learned that you don't have to have any credentials in order to say that you're a leader and that you can do this work. You just have to say, I want to open up a church, go apply for a 501c3, or a 508 C1 or something like that. Anyway, um, and then you have to, maybe go to theology school to get like the title of pastor or minister or whatever the case is. But it doesn't necessarily qualify to say that that person has done the spiritual work to consider themselves an actual spiritual leader. It's really up to them. And uh these teachings that come, yeah, you have to know the theology, you have to know and take the steps, just like any other college course. So just because you went to college to be a nurse, it doesn't mean that you actually have the experience when something happens in the moment to save somebody's life. You would have to get that by being actually there and experiencing what steps you would need to take in the heat of the moment. So, in my perspective, that would mean a pastor or a minister or an elder or whatever. They can go to school and get this theology certificate or whatever it is, and then they can go and just start preaching at church. But it does not say that they've done their own spiritual journey and their own spiritual work to connect in a way to say, hey, I have the capacity spiritually and emotionally and mentally to help my people move through whatever is going on in the world. That's not what that's saying. And I learned that very quickly when I came into contact with people who were religious and owned a whole church. I understood mistakenly, I thought, hey, when something goes crazy, they have the knowledge and they have the wisdom and they have the discernment on how to navigate through this because they own a church. They know how to deal with spiritual warfare. They know how to deal with, spiritual growth and development. They understand how to take these steps and move through it, and then teach us as a community or whoever is a part of their congregation what to do when these things happen. That was shattered very, very early on once I got a chance to fully be involved in church, okay, and learn about church people and multiple church people, not just the one I was going to, but even the ones that I had visited after, um, even people that I had known who eventually had a church themselves and then heard about some of the things that they did later on in life. And I'm like, whoa, they were a pastor and they were in this church. And then you hear about all of the movies and the videos and the news about all these kids who were being harmed by people in the church. I wasn't tuned into that very much when I was growing up or even in my 20s, really. It wasn't until after I was fully involved in my husband's dad's church that I was learning really more and more and more about this stuff. So for me, That kind of threw me. But what I realized very soon after is that they're no different than you. And there may be some people who have went through the process of um, doing their own work, and you may come into contact with them, and they may actually have the tools for you. But when it comes down to the actual moment that you have to like work your way out of it, I think it's very disconnected because I've been in a session with a therapist, right, who also was in this, um, a therapist who has been on a journey of their own of trying to figure life out for themselves. Meanwhile, this is the work that they do, right? This is the work you do every day. Meanwhile, when you go to church, you have to figure out how to get yourself through these things, right? No judgment. It's just an observation. And then you have people who work in the church, or who own churches who also are still having some of the same type of issues. And it's very hard for them to work through it, right? And so for me, it was like something is not clicking, like something is not right. And I don't think anybody is able to see it. But for some reason, I could see it. That doesn't take away that you're on your journey, right? But when you come into contact with these people and you realize they have these professions and these jobs and these titles and things like that, but they don't actually have the experience. So you're just like, well, how do you hold the title? And how do you hold, this position, but you don't have the experience, just like any other job? But then you realize that a lot of things is just based on titles. A lot of things is just based on, you know, the title you hold. It doesn't necessarily say that you have the experience just because you hold the title. And then it was like, that's crazy. Because I think as a society, we take this stuff very lightly when we say we're going to a therapist or we're going to church, right? When what's the crazy part about that is that those two are one and the same, right? So you're going to a whole different place to go get help for something that is directly connected to why you're going to church, right? You're going to church because you need some form of spiritual healing. You're going to a therapist because you need some form of mental healing. But those two are one in the same. But we go to two different places, right? It's no connected. The same, it's the same with your weight, right? And my gosh, has been the biggest lesson for me that what you consume, not just food, what you consume emotionally, mentally, spiritually, as well as nutritionally, is all the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. They're not different. But meanwhile, we go to different places to do these different things, and it seems like none of them are connected to the other. So you have a therapist that does not speak about religion really. They don't really go in depth about religion and how that is a part of their mental issue, right? Ethically, you can't do that. Then you go to the hospital, or the doctors, and you're going to get help with your health, when that health is directly connected to things that you may be going through mentally, which is also the foundation for you spiritually. Because spiritually, if you're feeling damaged or you're feeling like tainted in some way, or if you have any attachments, your spiritual life is really where it's starting at, for you to then be aware of why mentally this thing is attached to you, so that you can remove it and know that it's not of you and that it's an attachment, and understand that the space that it's being able to attach to is something that came from you spiritually being wounded, which turned into you mentally taking it on, which is why it's able to still attach to you and has a space to be able to attach to you, which is also related to what you eat, because it is giving you cravings on what you want to eat, because the attachment is feeding off of you and you are feeding it. Then what you're consuming, in the sense of what you're watching, if you're thinking about just the entertainment that you take in, which is pretty much just making you docile, not to have to deal with the root causes of your spirituality and what's happening there. And then, uh, which would be going to church, or if you're just spiritual, but also it goes into the culture. Whatever culture you grew up in is who you're going to serve or who you're going to be attached to spiritually, which is based on the food that you eat, which is being given to you, because in certain cultures will say, hey, we take this for parasites and we take this for that. But then you're in the culture, or you're in the United States, or you are an American, and those things are not very prevalent unless you've really heard them from cultures who practice this from like way back when. And then you just, adopt it into your life and then you use that. In the same token, all of these things are connected, right? But in your mind, it's separate. It's all separate. In your mind, oh, I gotta go to the doctor, I feel sick. When really it's just like your body is not operating on its highest spiritual frequency. It's not operating in its best spiritual self. And so, as above, so below. What's happening in the spirit world of what you're projecting, or what you're thinking about, or what you're consuming, or what you're around, or what you're taking in, is affecting you in the physical. Then you're physical and you're like, oh, I'm mentally drained, I'm mentally tired, I'm feeling really bad, or I can't get my mind together, I can't get clarity. So you go to a therapist, when really that is still the basis of your spiritual body, and what you think of and what you're consuming is stopping you from understanding how you're controlling the world around you because of what you are consuming. And then you're creating a reality that is not really of yours, but you're being programmed to create this reality because you think it's all separate, which is what helped me understand about bridging the gap. So the gap for us, well, the gap for me is the revelation that I had, is that the basis of all of this is one thing. It's one thing. It is the God that lives within you, the potential energy, the creative energy that lives within you, and what you decide to do with it when you have the opportunity to do it, to do what to do with it. Excuse me. So all of these things that you would love to say it's something else, it's not. It's not the people, it's not the food, it's not the person, place, or thing. It is all one thing. You don't become aware of it when you're a kid, because if no one around you when you're little makes you aware of that thing, then yeah, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard for you to see it. But I myself did not grow up around anybody who knew this, who understood it, who taught me it. No one that I know, no one that I knew, um, no one that I know now from who I grew up around still doesn't know it to the extent that I've had to experience it in order for me to know it. And it's the hardest thing, trying to pave a path that no one has walked on, because there is nobody who can help you. No one knows. No one has this for you. No one can tell you how this goes, what to do, in what form to do it. And most of the people that I was coming into contact with, they were lost. They were so lost. And because it's so much information, right? Because simplicity is godliness, right? Cleanliness is next to godliness. So cleanliness and simplicity is God. When things can be so complex, it's so much in your mind, it's so much going on. That's how you get lost, because you don't know what to hold on to. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's not real. You can't put it together. And that was the purpose of this being so hectic. That was the purpose of this realm being this hectic. So you'll never find your way out. You'll never find your way out. And so the gap that I realized really needed to be bridged was the simplicity, right? When you simply understand that these are not all different things, they're all the same thing, right? You'll hear about, fire, air, water, and earth, and then ether, right? It's the same, it's all those components, right? Because that's what makes this all up for us. It's all of those components all together in one whole, but they operate together. They do things together to make a whole. It is the same of us all being the essence of that energy, right? Now, there are some things that are not of God, right? What you would call God. It's not of creator energy. It's not, right? But you have to understand and you have to know thyself so you can be discerning of what and who that is, right? And what energy is harboring that. And what I realized is before I could fully understand that in a different realm, I had to understand that and how it was showing up in the realm that I had come from, right? So now when you look at this, right, we're all talking about like race wars and gender wars and things like that. But these wars or these things that they're talking about, it's all the same energy. It is just being diluted and it's being given to you in a different way. And because you don't know the original and you don't know what your basis of your foundation and makeup of yourself and where you come from, right? And if you don't have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you will be lost, right? And the basis of that, right? If you can look at the basis of what that is, it doesn't mean that you're just all good, right? That's not what that means. I think we want to say that if you are religious or spiritual, that, oh, you're the good people. And if you're not those things, oh, you're the bad people, or you're the bad and I'm the good, right? But we're not paying attention to the fact that we all exist in a neutral state, first and foremost. It's neutral. Once you have interacted in a space and time with someone or something, you change that form because you're no longer in neutral. You have come into contact with another space and time in a moment that may or may not require your attention, time, presence, or response, not reaction. So when you understand that, you always start off as neutral, right? When you see, so say for instance, right now as I'm recording, when I stop talking, you do not see the line of frequency that is being created because my voice is talking into a mic. And so you see the line of frequency. That's because I am responding and I am reacting, and this thing is reacting to me speaking into it. But when I just went silent and when I stop talking, it disappears. It is the same thing that you are doing as a frequency. When you are still, right, it's not giving off anything. It's neutral, right? Which is what God, creator force energy is. It is neutral. But once it comes into contact with an energy like us, who is utilizing that potential energy to respond or react or engage or just observe, it changes what it does, right? Now we get so lost from just that because a lot of us are like, oh, well, they did this to me, they did that to me, and I'm pissed off, and to hell with them, and I don't need them, and all these things, right? I was there. I was one of them. I was like, fuck everybody. Okay? I don't care. I don't need you. But when I realized that sometimes, most of the time, you don't have to respond to those things, right? You can just exist and be neutral in neutrality. And then that thing is going to dissipate on its own because you no longer resonate with it anyway. It's no longer going to be able to stay on the capacity of the level that you are on because they may still be triggered. They may still be doing the things that they do and how they do that keeps them in the space of frequency they are in, right? But you don't have to exist there. So naturally, it's going to change your level of understanding existence and frequency. And it's the same if you think about it from a religious aspect. From a religious aspect, they'll say, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. It's the same thing. It's talking about the same thing. Neutrality and not being of the world is to say, yeah, I'm in the world, right? But I don't have to be involved in all these things that don't have nothing to do with me. I don't have to react to everything that they're saying on the news or about me or in the spaces I have been in or go in. That's neutrality. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world. Yeah, I see what's going on. Yeah, I'm aware that this is happening, or I've heard about it, or I see it. But I don't have to be emotionally triggered. I don't have to respond to it. I don't have to make a whole new TikTok video talking about the harming of another person or what happened or who got hung or any of that. But what I can do is utilize my energy. And what I can do, even if it's religious wise, what I can do is I can help others to understand exactly what it is that they could be doing and how they could be taking the steps to change the reality that we are existing in, right? And so when you talk about helping them understand what they are existing in, that is you changing it right there, because you are doing something to change what is happening in that realm, in that space, in that time, in that place, in that church with those people. Spiritual wise, I don't have to react or give my energy or put my energy into it because it doesn't belong to me. I don't have to be attached to something that is being created, right? Once you stop feeding that, and once you stop being in the world and just be of it and be an observer or have a godlike mindset about it or a godlike vision of it, right? Those things can stop being created because people are not feeding into it. I think what's interesting is that we react and we respond and we speak about the things and we perpetuate it, even if it's in the church. When you do that in the church and you speak about the fear of, oh, if you're talking to Johnny come lately, or if you're doing this and you're smoking and you're in the club and you don't tithe, right? You're speaking about those things, so these things still exist. If we're not speaking about the abundance and how that looks, right? If you're not preaching about, hey, when you're feeling this moment, and the urge comes up for you to do XYZ or eat that bad food, right? You need to, yes, pray, yes, meditate, yes, write about it, yes, all those things, but also stop in the moment and be aware, right? Stop in the moment to say, why do I feel like this? I have an example. So, at one point in time, I was remineralizing my teeth, so I wasn't eating certain things. And so I was at the desk and I was recording a video, and a text message had popped up on uh, my phone. And so a text message popped up, and it was about um, my stepson's mother. It was a group text from the family, and it was about something that happened, about something that they wanted to do with him, and it came up. When that came up, because at the time we still not actively go through things, but it's still a very uncomfortable situation. But either way, at the time, um, I was triggered. I was triggered by the things that I had been through with that situation. One, with his family, and two, with his son's mother, and all of that put together had triggered me. And when I read that message, it took me out of the thought process of me making the video, and I went into the thought process of everything that I had went through and all the things that I was so pissed off about and all the things that I wanted to say and all the things that I had wanted to do and all the things that just were pissing me off, right? And the irritation behind all of it, all of that. And before I had come out of the thoughts, I was standing at my refrigerator door. Mind you, I had just ate a salad and drinking my smoothie. I just finished right before I started the video because I had finished eating my salad and then I went in to do the video and then that message came in and the trigger sent me into an emotional upheaval and it threw my whole thought process off and it threw my emotions off and I wasn't even thinking anymore. I was so much in my head about what I wanted to say and how they were wrong and what they had done and all the things and all the ways that they had done things very sneakily and how they done things that nobody knows that they're doing this but they are doing these things and it infuriated me, right? And when I looked up and I came out of the thought and I came out of the thought because my baby had walked up to me and tapped me from the playroom. And when I looked up, I was standing at the refrigerator with the door open and I was just there. And I was like, why am I at the refrigerator? When I came out of the door, I was like, why am I at the refrigerator? And I was like, I don't even know why I'm standing here because I'm not hungry, right? And you know, I just ate. And I didn't want anything. I didn't have a reason. I didn't want anything. None of it. And so I was just like, how did I end up here? And that was the day that I realized that when I get emotionally triggered, my soothing mechanism for me to come out of feeling emotionally triggered was to eat, right? It was to eat. And it's like, oh my goodness, the revelation behind that. Once I understood that, at that moment, I didn't really have the full information on how to counteract that or like how do you stop it or where it even came from. I didn't have any of the verbiage yet. I really didn't know what to do or what to say. Um, I just knew that it was. Right. And as I continued on in life and things changed, I eventually started to understand and see the pattern. It wasn't just that moment. It was anything. It didn't even have to be about those people. Anytime that things were bad that happened and had me triggered, I wanted to eat. Then it took me back to a time when I was a kid, right? I always had my own money because I always either did hair or nails or I had a job. I've been working since I was 13, so I've always had my own money. But in my household growing up, there was always a lot of bad things like just happening here and there and everywhere. And even with people who I call friends and so-called friends and things like that, um, those things triggered me because I was sensitive, right? I've always been very sensitive to, even if you don't say it, I can feel it. And it'll make you feel like you're crazy because that person will act like in your face that this thing that you're feeling is not what you're feeling. And you can't, and if you don't trust yourself and you don't know yourself and no one's taught you this, you don't realize to trust, what it is that you're feeling. You don't know that it's okay to trust yourself. You don't know that. So for me, I understood that this thing was something I had dealt with from a kid, right? Um, and when I went back to a time where I was like, well, when was there a time that I didn't react to stuff like that? If I'm being honest, it was a time where I had a friend named Shakira, right? And we weren't friends very long because the person who she was originally friends with would kind of keep this back and forth thing between her and I didn't have an issue with the girl and I didn't know why she had an issue with me. But once that barrier was gone, the young lady had went on with her life and she was doing her and things like that. Um, Me and her got close and we had nothing but fun. It was always just fun. And she had this energy about her that if you let her talk you into it, she will make you think you can walk on the freaking moon, if I'm being so honest. Like, she'll be like, look, we can do this, we can do that. Hey, I'm gonna get my mom, I'm gonna tell her that you need her hair done so we can get the money so we can go do this, we can go do that. She always had a plan. She always had like an exit strategy. Like if she wanted to do something, you know, and when I came into contact with that energy, it was very different than any other energy that I had experienced with anybody around me, because most people that I had been around were very like negative or Debbie Downers, or it was always something why you couldn't do it, right? And the only other person who was kind of like supportive in that way would be my cousin Kawan, and he would be like, "Yo, I'll help you with your SAT, or I'll help you with your studying, or whatever the case was." And so, you know, but yeah, once I got back to that thought of thinking about, I didn't feel like I needed to feel like that when I was in her presence. We just had fun. There was no triggering. There was no feeling of, needing to suppress anything or anything. It was just like I didn't have to dim myself down because her light had shined, and it was okay for my light to shine with hers. It was okay for us to have fun together because she wasn't mad if I had fun. She wasn't upset, or she didn't look at me negatively because I felt excited about something or wanted to share something. She was just as excited, if not more, right? And then right when we were getting close, I had to move to a whole other state, and that was just like broken, right? A little taste of that, and then it was broken. But at the end of the day, I realized that, and going back to that thought, I realized that when I got older, like I have to stay away from things that trigger me, right? So that I can get a chance to figure out what that trigger is, so that I can heal the trigger. And then if it comes into contact when this type of energy comes up again, it's not triggering for me. I'm okay with it because I've healed what it is that triggers me about it, right? And then it doesn't make me go into an unhealthy habit, which is eating something and then I gain the weight. To bring it all back full circle though, all of it was connected. All of that is connected, right? A lot of times we're doing something because we're spiritually wounded in some way, emotionally wounded, mentally wounded, and we do something of an action to subside that feeling, as opposed to understanding that this is like a quick fix. Same when you go to the doctor, oh, I feel bad, they give you medicine. We're doing the same thing with our spiritual wounds. We are using these things to make us feel like this wound is not still there. You know what I'm saying? It's doing things. We're buying a lot of clothes and buying the biggest house and buying the best cars. And it's okay to do that. But it's not okay to do that to make you feel like you have added value or worth to you when you're already perfect the way you are. You have the value. It's already within you. You're already worthy, right? And all these things will make us think that we need to do something else besides be our authentic selves and operate in our authenticity and be okay and be fine with knowing that your authenticity is dope just the way you are. We don't realize it's because we have been broken from the way that we were originally made. We have been broken from the things that we think make us who we are, because we have been told you need to go here, go there, look at this and look at that. And you don't. You don't at all, right? And so when I realized that for myself, I'm like, you know what? This is how this is how it's supposed to be seen. This is how these things are meant to be understood. It's not meant to take on more stuff to make you feel like you're valid or you're rich or you're the best or something or you're better than somebody else. No. Those are attachments, and we're being attached to something else because we don't want to deal with ourselves. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's very hard to do so, but it's still a fact. It's still a fact. And it doesn't make you a bad person because of that thing. It just makes it that this is what it is. And you have to figure out how you're going to fix it. You have to figure it out. You got to dig deep and understand why you think the way you think, why you do what you do, why you act how you act. Question yourself, because what I was understanding is that I'm thinking, oh, it's just him, he the problem. Oh, it's just that person, they the problem. And you know what? They may be the problem. They may definitely be the one who is doing some shady stuff to you. But what that is also saying is you got to recognize that you are putting yourself in spaces and places where this is continuously happening, and why in your mind do you think that this is okay for you to keep putting yourself in that? But that goes back to the self-love. We love other people and say we're going to do these things and be at this place with other people because, oh, we love them, we want to be supportive. Meanwhile, we know on the inside we don't like it, we don't want to be there, we don't approve of it, but we still do it because we're like, oh, but I love that person. But you love that person more than you love yourself. You're willing to deal with these things that you know you don't deserve because you love that person more than you love yourself, or you love that thing more than you love yourself. And this is what they will have you believe, is that you're not worthy of loving yourself. You're not worthy of putting yourself first because that means you're selfish, or that means there's something wrong with you. No, we operate in neutrality. And when you operate in that space, understand that how you respond and what you do in the spaces will show the self love you need. Whenever you come into contact with something that gives you an emotional trigger, or it gives you a feeling of some sort, when you process that feeling and when you understand what that feeling means, and you trust yourself enough to know that because I love myself and because I trust myself, because when you love somebody, when you genuinely love somebody, you trust them and you respect them and you respect their point of view and you respect, you know, that they're giving you the right information, or they're giving you something out of the kindness of their heart, not to harm you. And so if you can say that this is you doing that for you, and you trust that, then you know that what you are feeling and what you are thinking about and what you are hearing from yourself and what you are experiencing within your emotions, and you are processing them, right? That what you are in is on a different frequency, or it's not resonating with you. It's not of God, right? It's so many things that I have come into contact with where here's an example. Um, there was a lot of things going on between my husband and his son's mother, right? And I thought, okay, let me see if I could talk to her woman to woman because they have bad blood. I'm going to help. I'm going to talk. Maybe she won't want to deal with him because she has bad blood. Maybe we can smooth it out, right? It looked like it was going to work, but then it didn't work. So then I called my father-in-law and I'm like, hey, you're a leader of the community, and I'm thinking that maybe you can help fix this so that it can stop being so much turmoil in the space where this baby needs to have both his parents, right? And I realized that it really was more so about not wanting to rattle the fence between her and him, because then he would also lose the time that he was getting from her, that she wasn't given to um, the dad, but she was given to him. And so when I seen those things, right, because I'm like, hey, I'm already trying to say, hey, well, let's do things her way, exactly how she does it to my husband. And then let's, maybe the way that she's going is the right way. And let's just do that and see where it goes. So I'm over here trying to see, hey, let's figure out this. Let's figure out that. Let's figure out this. I'm giving all different types of, because sometimes people can't see certain things, right? But when I realized that I myself was putting myself on the back burner to handle something that all of these other people are going to have to try and do their best to come together to do, and I seen that it was triggering me because a lot of it was selfishness, right? I understood that my husband didn't want to have to cause more drama in his son's life, and it was causing a lot of drama anytime we came into contact with the other party. And so it was like, well, how do you handle this? Even if you go to court, even if you do this, how do you handle this without it being so hectic? Right? There was no answer. There was no valid way. So you go through this avenue, we go through that avenue. But then there was bad blood over here because at the time uh, of that, there were personal issues between them. Right. And so for me, that lesson within itself taught me This is not for you to take on, right? You're already going through your own stuff that you have to navigate and learn and move through. So you can't take this on. It's not for you. It's for them as the people involved in it to learn this lesson. And I'm going to bow out gracefully, and I'm going to support in the best way that I can that does not take me out of my space of what is needed for me to feel triggered or to damage the progress that I've made on my own healing journey. It was moments like that that I had to recognize that it wasn't for me to go dive in deeper and start trying to, you know, fight with this person and talk with this person and try and make things happen because you can't control nobody but yourself. What it taught me was this is not my fight. As much as I want to be supportive and as much as I see the need for this to not be happening because that baby is the only one suffering because he has to make a choice between who he wants to be with or not want to be with or deal with all these things, right? As much as that was very hard for me to come to terms with, I understood that it was not my fight and I understood that this was not for me. What I could do is always offer up solutions or suggestions or even opportunities where there was space to for things to get better. But outside of that, I would not be fully involved in it. That was my self-love choice for me, right? And a lot of times, whatever that situation is for you in your life, it's going to have to be that for you that you see that, hey, this is not worth my peace. This is not worth my sanity. And if you can really look back, you can see how you're actually doing this to yourself. Because technically, I was doing that to myself. I was inserting myself in this where it didn't need me to do so. Yes, I want to be supportive, but that's my people pleasing, want to fixer kind of energy because being younger, being in the household with my mom and being around people, when you got to navigate people's emotions and stuff, and you feel like you got to fix everything. As you get older, those things, those habits don't change. They just evolve into something else. And you start doing more things that show you that you lack self-love for yourself because you didn't understand how what they were doing to you was not teaching you self-love when you were a kid. It's the same thing. With that, you once you understand that, you start to be able to see where spiritually what this is for you, right? It's not your battle. You let God or you let your higher source or the creator or divine, whatever you relate to, handle that. It's not for you because you can't do anything about it anyway. These are the lessons and the revelations that you get when you step back and you look at yourself, right? You're like, oh, why are so many things going crazy? Why am I going through this? Yeah, why are you going through this? What are you doing to yourself that you're going through this? Even in a marriage, there was so many things that I'm like, hey, babe, I need you to do this. I want you to do that. You got to help with this. Be more involved in that. But I can't control you. So all I can do is I can push and I can pull on what it is that I'm going to do. I can set a boundary on what I'm going to allow, what I'm not going to allow within my space. I can say, hey, listen, this is about as much as I'm going to do, and the rest is up to you. Whatever you so choose to do with that is on you. And whatever decision they make, depending on what it is that I feel like I can handle, will be the next decision that I make. But I'm not going to try and make them make a decision because there's nothing you can do about somebody else making their own decisions. All you can do is see what the decisions they made, which will show you their intentions and their heart and who they really are. And then you make a informed decision about what you need to be doing from that point on. And that's how I approached it. That for me opened up so much spiritually because I stopped taking on and absorbing other people's energy and other people's problems, which was all affecting me spiritually. It was affecting my weight. It was affecting my mental. It was affecting my spiritual. It was affecting my financial. Because even while you're paying attention to what they're doing, you're not self developing. You're not learning new skills. You're not learning new things. You can't do better and get yourself out of whatever situations you're in because your energy is too much into what's going on over here. And you don't need to put your energy there. Same with watching the news and celebrity stuff. I'm not paying attention. What does that have to do with me? What does me watching that benefit me in what way? What does me being involved in this stuff benefit me in any way? And if I don't have a solution and if I don't have a way to get out of it, then I'm not adding any value either. I'm just adding to another person in the pot. All these things and all these different situations and experiences taught me about me. It taught me about self-love. It taught me to how see from it taught me to see how I need to be making decisions based on things I can control and not trying to force things or insert myself in things that I have no control over. I don't have to fight that battle, right? And if we could teach people that, whether it's religion or spirituality, to just become more aware of what you are doing, not what the other person is doing. Yeah, she, pushed back because she's like, why you involved in it? You don't belong in this. You ain't the mama or the daddy, right? And then my father-in-law's like, hey, look, I'll handle it, but it ain't my responsibility to give you access. And then my husband, he's like, look, I'm doing my best, but I'm not going to cause more drama in his life by showing up to stuff. And then it turns into something really bad or really heavy, right? Everybody's making their decisions based on how they feel like they have the capacity to handle the situation. Even though from the outside looking in, I can see what is needed to help the situation. But if everybody involved in it are not making the best choices within what they can control, then it's not going to get better. And it has to be everyone collectively who is involved in it. But you can't make that happen. So what you have to do is you have to go and you have to protect your peace. You have to understand spiritually that certain things are not meant for you to be involved in. That's not for you. You see what I mean? So that really was like an eye opener for all of these things and just how it went and how it goes for everybody and how to bridge that gap. You just paying attention to what you need and giving yourself that self-love bridges the gap to understand what it is that God is trying to show you, the universe, divine, whatever you resonate with, is trying to show you how to access this for yourself. You have full access to it. You just have to be paying attention and not being so involved in everything else and not getting lost in all the different things that the world will tell you that you need to put your attention to, right? Because you're in the world, you're of the world, you're not in the world, right? You have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. If you can understand that portion of it, you'll see that you're being guided. You're being shown this. And this is giving you an opportunity to understand what that looks like in the energy with things that are familiar to you. Because as you self develop, you're going to come into different contacts and different spaces and places with people who have the real big energy that you're going to have to conquer. But you got to get through these little ones with the people that you say you love, that are ones that are most closest to you, because those are the hardest ones to get through because they will trigger you the most. They will take you out of neutrality the quickest. Once you learn how to navigate that and not be so responsive and let that pull on your frequency and let that pull on your energy, and you stand in that neutrality when you go out into the world beyond the people that you grew up with. And here's the thing too, a lot of us will run away from that with our people instead of just paying attention to what's happening and then learning from it so that you can do better. When you'll just suppress it and repress it and not think about it and just hold on to the grudge and then create a space where there's an attachment that can happen instead of dealing with it and understanding yourself through it. So then you see that energy again. But if it's more potent, like they said, new level, new devil, right? What I understand by that is new level. So the lower level is you're going to go through this with your family, right? You're going to go through this with the very people that you know, whether that's family, friends, or job related, close quarters, right? Church family, whatever. Once you understand that level of what is happening there on a diluted level, right? Because a lot of this is happening diluted. When you talk about when you come into contact with it as another Black person to a Black person, this is a diluted version of what has been filtrated down into them. This has been filtrated down to your own people doing this to you because it's come from a very much higher level, really, really high. So once you conquer that level, for that devil, right? Just stop being triggered by the people that you love and are supposed to love you, your family members, the people you know. Once you can build that muscle up from just some people that you know, you're like, all right, I know what this is. So you know what? I don't get triggered by that. I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. I got this. And then you go into a different level because now you paid attention and you've self-developed, and now you got into a different level. Now you're in like the corporate world, or you're in a different space altogether, right? And yes, now you probably come into contact with like-minded people, and those like-minded people are uh they're on the same frequency you are. But even on that frequency now, there is still a polarity, there's still a duality there. There still is, yes, you've got like-minded people, but now you also have a level of people who are the opposite end of that spectrum at this level. And now you have to figure out and grow and maneuver about what this looks like, right? Because and as an example, you'll have it where it's like, oh, I know in your mind, like black people, they're like, oh, they broke, oh, I don't got time, oh, they sneaky, oh, they shy, they talk behind my back, right? So that's the devil you learn to know. And if you don't conquer that, you'll keep coming into contact with that. But once you get to the next level, then you have people who are really, really nice. And they're actually offering you things and not like trying to take things or not trying to get over on you. They're really offering you things, right? Because now these things have attachments that they want to put on you. And you, if you're not aware, you won't realize that, oh, these people are nice. They're giving me, they're this and they're that. And now that's a different devil. Because you're not used to people trying to pour into you and give you, because them people were just trying to take from you. But now these people are trying to give to you. But now you're thinking that this is something that's completely, oh, it's not like the other people. Now there are some who are not like the other people. Some of them are trying to give to you. Some of them are trying to pour into you, genuinely pour into you. But if you're not careful, you will allow somebody to pour something in you that has an attachment, and you not be able to discern it because you haven't conquered this devil at this level, because you don't know what it looks like yet. Now you can always pull from, some of the wisdom and the discernment from, you know, the other level, but that also would have required you to level up in the energy and paying attention to the patterns and paying attention to what that may look like, and the patterns and the words that they say and the things that they use and the stuff that they present you with, right? That's that new level, different devil thing. You have to be discerning at this level now, because now you have to learn something at this level. And that's just in you coming into contact with that I'll give it a middle level. So you got lower level, then you got the middle level of what that looks like. And then you conquer that, and then you move on up. And I'm not just talking about in money wise. I'm talking about in the actual response that when, as you grow, your energy grows, your aura grows, as you develop, you're learning new things, you're coming into contact with new people, places, and things. But when you come into contact, there are other things that are going to be attracted to, wanting to attach to you, wanting to either corrupt you or wanting to either pour into you. And you have to be very in tune and discerning and be able to trust yourself enough to know, don't fall trap to this. Don't fall victim to that, right? Set a boundary. Understand what those boundaries are that you've created from that other level, and then have to, enforce them in a different way at this level, right? Have a certain way you operate and interact with people, so that way you can understand what's of God and what is not, what of is light and what is of dark. But that all takes for, as within, so without, right? And making sure that your steps that you're taking is also in alignment. You not going out to eventually turn into this bitter person, this mean person, this bad person. You not allowing these things that you come into contact to taint you and change you and make you something that you are not, is going to protect you in every way. It's going to set you apart, because see, people are going to send things your way all the time. They're going to put things on you all the time, but you have to know not to allow those attachments on you. You have to figure out how to conquer that, and we all have our own ways that we're doing that. I'm doing that in my way. I know that that is something that is spiritually, for me. Whether it's my being neurodivergent or me having the consistency or things like that, it is something, and I refuse to go and pump a bunch of things in my body that are unnatural, whether that is me taking those shots or getting cut up or going under the knife for something that I know I can think my way out of. I know that I can discipline myself out of just taking small steps, even if this is not something that I've ever seen, even if nobody around me has ever shown me how to get there. I can watch enough videos, I can do enough things, I can create enough calendars, and even if I fall off, I can keep trying and doing it again as long as I get there. And it's okay if it takes me a while. But even if it takes for me to understand my mental before I get to understanding how I change it in the physical. Because a lot of what I realized about me is that I had to conquer what was going on in my mental and remove a lot of things out of there so that I could see deeply about what is actually happening to me in the physical and why I am the way I am, why my body is the way it is, why I was born a certain way, why these things happen to my body, and my mom gave me certain things in my body who she wasn't paying attention to, and now I have to break all of that and change it as I'm learning. And mind you, I'm learning this through me seeing how it's affecting my kids and then me teaching myself, oh, this is affecting me too, which is also teaching me how to see self-love. So if I'm being conscious about what I feed my kids and how I treat my kids and where I send my kids and how I talk to my kids, it has taught me, oh, you need to be conscious of all of those things for you too. Because even though no one never thought about that for me growing up, no one gave a rat's ass about how to do that for me when I was growing up. So who was I going to learn that from to think of to think in that way, to be in that way? Nobody. But I am adamant about, because that was not done for me and because I was treated in that way, that I refuse to do that to my babies. They don't deserve that. And if I'm being honest, yeah, my babies don't deserve it, but I don't want to come into contact with anybody where I have to feel like I'm going to treat them in that way. I'm not going to treat you in that way. I am neutral. When I meet you, I am neutral. When I meet you, it is what it is. I don't know you. You don't know me. Once you show me who you are, once you show me, I'm paying attention. And then I know how to make my decisions and my moves after I've paid attention. And then if I feel like, okay, what I recognized or what I seen wasn't, this or that, then I made a decision to either go back in your space. Oh, this? Oh, okay. Oh, no. Or that made me feel like this. Let me check in with myself. What was that? Let's play it out. Let's maneuver what that looked like. Right? That's how I discern where I'm going to go and what's next. And don't get me wrong, you can still get emotionally blinded by somebody, because this is what happens when they say love is blind, right? Love is blind because love doesn't have, it's not seeking out to say, hey, I'm going to be good or bad to this person. But I think people use it in the sense that when you are in love, or when you love somebody, you can be blind to the things that you should be seeing about them, but you're not. And that's a fact. That's very true. And it's yes, you should be knowing that, and you should be doing that to pay attention very well, but sometimes it can really throw you off. And I mean that's anybody. Anybody. I don't care how spiritually discerning you are, no one is perfect. And everyone has a level of temptation, and everyone has a level of, lack of understanding of thyself. We're on this journey until the end, and no one actually knows how that's going to end. So you got to be real about that. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're in a neutral space, because you know that is where God, creator, divine, resides, in that neutral space, in that space. And when you understand that, you always go back to that space. I don't care what happened before. I don't care what happened with you before. I'm in a neutral space in this moment. Am I aware and discerning that this is the type of, person you are, right? That I'm going to go off for the wisdom and I'm going to pay attention. And it doesn't mean that that person can't change, right? Because that's what forgiveness is. The person can change. They can change, but you don't initially put yourself in there. If you come into passing with a person who you know was one way, and you pay attention to the energy and you pay attention to the patterns of what they're doing, and they're still holding those same patterns and they're still doing those same things, then hey, you recognize the pattern. It ain't different, right? You need to handle that with the discernment and the wisdom that you've gained. But if you come into contact with that person and you feel and you see, hey, there's something different, these things are changing, this is that, then the opportunity is there to say, be discerning and be wise and be aware that if any of these patterns happen to show up again, right, you know that it was a facade. you know that the way that they're moving is not really the way that they're moving, right? And there are going to be things that show you, I don't care if it's the smallest thing, it's going to peek out, but you have to be paying attention. With that, that gives you the opportunity to flow. You don't have to be, so rigid. You don't have to be so stuck in the idea that everything is the same. No, everything is forever changing. And you are forever changing. You are forever flowing. And that is how it is intended for us to be. That is what creation is intended to be. It is intended to flow. It is a frequency. When it's flat, it's flat. It has no movement. It can't do anything else. So they say they're flat line. When you're flat line, there's no more up and down on that scale. Yeah, because there's nothing about your energy or your frequency is moving anymore. So it can't make a ripple. It can't make a change. It can't do anything at this point anymore. It's done. It's the same. This has went on for long. This video has been on for a really long time, so I'm going to end this here. But I hope that this helps someone. Please put it down in the comments. If this helps you in any way, shape, or form, if you got something out of it, there still will be other videos whenever, you know, I get a message from spirit or I am compelled to speak about these things. I will do so as I understand this for somebody else, and it's to help somebody, and it's to help somebody on that journey. So that's what I'm going to do because that's what it's for. Peace.